So hello again, everybody. Louise Eddington, the Cosmic Owl of Cosmic Owl Astrology, and I am back with a second video about Kamala Harris astrology, and I'm going to look ahead at some of the cycles that will be affecting her over the next few months. I do want to say that in my first video, I did say that I was only looking at her natal chart and her natal promise, and I still maintain that this is her time. You know, she's stepping into her natal promise in her chart, and I still love her chart. So there we go. So anyway, let's go on and talk about some transits. Now, I'm actually immediately not going to share the chart because I think I do too much kind of detail on the chart sometimes, and that's great if you're an astrologer, but you know, I will put the chart up in a minute. So for this one, I am just going to look at some big cycles, transits, and so on that are affecting her over the next year, and then we'll dial into some of the bigger ones in her chart. Now then, I kind of did not go back far, but we'll probably go back a little bit further. But right now, she has Jupiter in Gemini is square to her natal Uranus, and that was exact on July the 25th. Really, you know, as all this was bursting out and all the excitement of her really just kind of really grabbing everything by the horns and starting to create ads. Everything happened very quickly, and all these calls have stepped have sprung up. You know, the white women for Kamala, and Gemini is very much about communication. Uranus is often related to the internet. Anyway, everybody I see is talking about this big shift in energy and opening up, and that feels very much like this Jupiter square to Uranus in Taurus. She has in Virgo. She has Uranus in Virgo. So we'll look at those transits in a minute. Also, kind of at the same time, well, happening in early August. Now, we know that, you know, there's this huge excitement, and that's good for the momentum of the campaign, but we do know that this campaign is not going to be easy. You know, look what she's up against, and look at all the kind of hate already kind of springing up against her online from her opposition. So that is definitely reflected in this. And also, even if she is elected, which I think she will be, but that's my view, other astrologers think differently. And predictive astrology is a very imprecise um, sport, and I don't usually predict. So I'm saying it. I've felt it in my gut for a long time. I kind of feel it when I look at the astrology, but I am not per se a predictive astrologer. In my astrology readings with um, my clients, I will not predict exact things. I do, however, talk about what the energy is offering. And then I always think we're in co-creation with the universe, and we have free will in how we respond to it. So before you come at me saying other astrologers are saying, I don't care what other astrologers are saying. I will look at the astrology and what it tells me, and I will also tune in. But anyway, so this is her kind of bursting out. In August, she has some other good aspects that I think are going to kind of push her forward, but she also has a couple of challenging aspects, and we'll look in a little bit of detail in that. But she has Jupiter square to her natal Chiron in Pisces, which is up at the top of her chart. And Jupiter is also going to be square her natal Pluto. Now, again, I do not always see um, squares as bad. I see them as they can be a challenge, but it can also give you the big push to transform and change. So when we look at the aspects on her chart, we'll look at where they are showing up in her chart. So she's having a lot of Jupiter aspects, and they are usually kind of more fortunate, more opportune. Jupiter is also kind of the judge and the prosecutor in many ways, and she is already kind of prosecuting Trump, like verbally, not literally. Her prosecutors coming out in this. So we'll look at where this is all happening in her chart. She's also got some pretty big Saturn objects, Saturn transits coming up. Saturn is going to oppose her Venus, and Saturn is going to trine her Neptune, and then Saturn is also going to oppose her Pluto, conjunct her Chiron, and will oppose her Uranus too, and that's in October. Now, Saturn can bring, reality checks, but it's also really a time to really kind of lean into your backbone, if you like, and lean into your strengths. And I do want to say that these Saturn aspects for Kamala have already been happening, because they've already happened once. Saturn's now retrograde and going back over them. And she will meet challenges. She will meet resistance, which is the opposition. She will meet like these tough periods. But we'll look at her natal Saturn and we'll look at other things and see. I think she's up for the job as well. So, because she has proven her toughness before, but we'll look at all that. So I'm just going to go up to the election really with these major transits, and I might mention a brief bit about next year, but I would rather do a series of shorter videos. So those are the main ones leading up to the election. After the election, in November, she actually has a lovely Jupiter square to her natal Venus. Remember that Saturn is still opposing, though, because Saturn will go direct and go back over all those aspects again. So, yes, she will meet resistance. She will meet challenges, but, duh, you know. Your natal promise shows how you are up for the job. So anyway, we'll look at all of that. In January, as we move forward into the inauguration, if she is elected, then her solar progressed moon has also just moved into Aries, which is the leader. Aries is the pioneer and things like that. And, secondary progress. Misspeaking. This Mercury retrograde is going to hit me big time. So if I say words wrong, then, But this is also, so her secondary progressed moon, is in Cancer. And I looked at the wrong line. But it's moving into a second house of self-esteem, self-worth, and how you earn your money. So, and it's also got that nurturing side that she's starting to really show as well on the campaign. So we'll look at that. Into next year, I'm not going to list them all, but I'm just going to look through, and we really need to look at the whole bigger picture rather than just challenging ones. I'll look at the eclipses too. I'm going to look at the upcoming eclipses that are happening later this year, but also and see how they're affecting her chart a little bit. And later next year, she's still got all these Saturn aspects kind of happening over and over again. But I still think this is an opportunity for her to kind of step up into this leadership of Saturn in Pisces being this very different energy of leadership that she's really starting to display. And I will not accept um, any disrespectful or any cruel personal comments about. I will only and any beliefs about her record as a prosecutor and an attorney general and things like that. There's plenty of debunking out there if you want to go and see that as well. Remember, I came from this leftist group and I've kind of left that behind, of this like finding every little fault, and a lot of it is not incorrect, I will have to tell you. So just saying. So other things, other aspects next year, really do not see many very tough aspects at all. Her secondary progressed Mercury will move into her sixth house, which is the house of service and daily work. I kind of like that as well, and will oppose her ascendant. I think she's going to have this very strong voice because her Mercury, secondary progressed Mercury, is in Sagittarius. The biggest kind of aspect I see challenging, if we're only looking about 14 months ahead, is that in June of next year, Uranus in Taurus will square her natal Saturn. So we could look at that one. All right. So I don't see any major awful aspects. And most of the aspects that she's having, I have experienced myself, and I'm still here. And, you know, it's how we lean into these transits and aspects. All right. So let's dive in. So I do want to look at Saturn. So I looked briefly, or I mentioned it briefly, I think, in the first video, but Saturn has been transiting through Pisces for quite some time. So it's in her career house. This house is roughly related to Saturn in Capricorn in many ways. And Saturn is the rules and the law, but it's also mastery and kind of stepping up into leadership and so on and so forth. Now then, we're gonna hear an awful lot about, and I'm not calling out any particular astrologers, but I've seen it mentioned in groups and things. Oh, Saturn's gonna be conjunct her Chiron. And they never kind of give an opinion on what that means. And so let's talk about Chiron. Chiron in Pisces, I think, is a beautiful energy. I've often referred to Chiron in Pisces as kind of this true Christ consciousness energy as well, wanting to kind of help the poor, wanting to heal, probably having to come from that as well, because what Chiron brings us is both our wound and how we've healed it and how we bring that forward as well, especially when it's up in her career or mission part of her chart. She's also got midheaven in Pisces, so she has got this very spiritual side to her. And I don't know if you are aware, so we can look at this as well. Her name, Kamala, means, well, talk about vaguely, you know, there's various, different meanings, but the name Kamala means basically lotus flower, or it's also related to the goddess Lakshmi, who is the center of the lotus. So it is a Sanskrit word meaning lotus, and that's very Piscean to me as well. And so, Lakshmi as well is is one of the more beautiful kind of Hindu deities because her mother, of course, is Asian. Okay, um, so this is all kind of this. I think names have a meaning too, as well. So let me see what else. Kamala is also used as a yellow dye. It's a powder or something like that. Um, so that was Kamala meaning. I want Kamala name meaning. There was something else I read as well that I wanted to read. Yeah, so it is meaning lotus, but lotus flower, it stems from the Sanskrit word for lotus flower. Okay. And then if we look at the goddess Lakshmi, I must actually I will be interviewing her for um on a summit I'm going to run later in the year. Meghna Bhagat, my friend, who brings a lot of this Hindu wisdom into her work as well. I've also studied it because I studied study of religion. But Lakshmi is the Hindu goddess who represents wealth, good fortune, youth, and beauty. All right, so I don't think we can take too much just from the name, but combined with this Chiron in Pisces, this Pisces up here, she also has Vesta at the top of her chart, the flame of the state. Okay, in Pisces. Anyway, let's go back. In April, Saturn crossed her Chiron for the first time, and Saturn was conjunct Mars on her Chiron. Has that like damaged her career? Has all these Saturn transits the first time damaged things, or has it opened her up into leadership in that 10th house? Now, she has a natal Saturn in Aquarius, Aquarius is the traditional sign of Saturn's rulership, and in the 9th house, which is the prosecutor, the judge, the attorney general kind of thing. So, but Saturn is right at the top of her chart too. So she has a strong Saturn already. She's also got an Aries moon, which is Mars guided. So Mars and Saturn came together in April and were conjunct her Chiron, the one that everybody is kind of doing the sharp intake of breath over and is kind of saying, oh my God, that's going to really hurt. Now then, but I will mention something else from experience. But of course, all of this was also opposing her Uranus and Pluto. I'm not going to bring dates for every exact kind of, aspect. But then Saturn went retrograde, and Saturn is retrograde now in the sign of Pisces. Mars has moved on. Mars is going to go into her first house. So that conjunction there on her Chiron is bringing her into. I think she is on this journey to heal. Okay, in many ways. But in September, the middle pass of her Saturn on her Chiron will happen. And personally, I often find the middle pass of a transit, it hurts the most, if you like. She's going to be the victim of relentless attacks. And I think it will hurt more than she will show. It's going to come from these criticisms. It's going to ignite her inner kind of wounds from words, probably that she's heard all her life. I think I mentioned that, this in here is kind of probably a lot of the attacks that she's received all her life as a Black woman and being bussed when she was young and all those kind of things. Because I don't believe her family life itself was particularly challenging. I need to look into that a little bit more. So this middle pass in September is before the election, but it's going to sting. You know, she's going to get, Saturn's going to be on her Chiron. Saturn's going to come up and oppose her Pluto again. Before that, while retrograde, right now it's pretty much opposing her Venus. So the attacks are really starting from the opposition, from the other. And you know, I do think she is quite a beautiful soul, really, and does want the best, you know, but we're all human. So, you know, no opinions on that one, please. So then let's go to Saturn stationing direct, because we're going to hear an awful lot about Saturn. By just after the election, November the 15th, Saturn stations direct, opposing her Uranus pretty much. It will have exactly opposed her Uranus just before. So let's perhaps look at that. So Saturn opposing Uranus, which is the liberator, right? And breaking free as well. So just before the election, October the 20th, Saturn opposes her Uranus again for the third time. I think, you know, she's got the support behind her. She's a strong person herself. And at the same time, Jupiter has been going back and forth over her ascendant, which is nice as well. I think she's kind of well enough into this Saturn transit that she knows she kind of has to buckle up and do her great work. Okay, so I still think this is good. And then to go back to the aspects, as I mentioned, I would. The last pass conjunct Chiron, January the 3rd. So Saturn will conjunct her Chiron again on January the 3rd. And she's going to have so much, you know, coming at her. It just is going to happen. But then Saturn opposing Venus. Okay. February the 5th, 2025. You know, she is kind of going to go. I've kind of withstood this. I've created the strong boundaries, I've kind of toughened up, and Saturn will oppose her Venus again. And she's pretty much done with those Saturn transits by then. And of course, that's just after the inauguration. But the other interesting thing that comes with that point is that Saturn catches up to Nessus. Now, Saturn and Nessus both stationed retrograde at 19 Pisces, pretty much opposing her Venus. And she's already talking about, you know, how she's prosecuted sexual abusers and things like that. And she's referencing it to Trump. Tangentially, she's saying, I know you're kind. That's another thing of the opposition. Nessus reveals abuses of power. And she's a prosecutor, and she is going to reveal a lot of abuses of power and going to talk about it in a stronger way, probably, than Biden ever did. And so, but look at this as well. The North Node moves back into Pisces, and just after the inauguration, the two are about to meet. And this is in her career house too. The North Node is moving into her career house now. And that's the direction we're moving to. I still maintain it's looking good for her. Okay. So that's some of the transits I wanted to look at. Let me just quickly go back and look at the other ones. Jupiter I wanted to look at because she's having an awful lot of Jupiter. So I've shown you all these major Saturn transits. Yep, so we're done with Saturn. So let's look at Jupiter. Now, she has a south node in Jupiter, and that's right on her descendant, which is compromising ourselves for others, but it's also kind of speaking to others. And the South Node, again, I don't always think is bad. You know, Sagittarius is like truth speaker, finding the truth. Okay, and Jupiter rules her South Node. So I mentioned it already, but I'll show you the aspect. So on July the 25th, that was it. July the 25th, Jupiter was square her natal Uranus, and she has burst out of the box. Okay, Jupiter's going in through her 12th house, which is often a house of hidden enemies, but it's also secret fears. But, you know, she's had all this stuff happening in her house for a while. She had a Jupiter return not long ago. Let me show you her Jupiter return as well. And then, so her last Jupiter return had Uranus conjunct. It was right after the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction that I did a whole video on. She's bursting out of that 12th house, which is her behind the scenes, really, in many ways. Now, she's got a little ways to go to, you know, extricate her way out of the shadow of being a VP, because the VP is also always a very behind the scenes kind of thing. But Jupiter it was square Uranus, her natal Uranus on July the 25th. So we not only had Saturn opposing this, we had Jupiter coming up and squaring all of this. So this Chiron, Uranus, Pluto, Venus opposition are also being activated by Jupiter. Okay. And so she is really kind of bursting out. And, you know, Jupiter and Saturn both have this relationship to the law. She's a Libra, which is also the scales of justice. You know, there's all kinds of things going on there. So let me look at the other aspects. Yeah, I mentioned Jupiter's going to square Chiron, square Pluto, but because Jupiter rules her South Node, you know, squares are a push. Squares can give you a big push to change. Let me look at the other major Jupiter aspects coming up. Of course, it will square that Venus at the bottom of her chart too. And her Pluto, you know, all of this is really kind of happening at pretty much at the same time. But I do want to mention before we move forward with Jupiter to when that goes over her ascendant and all that kind of thing, because Jupiter's going to go retrograde. I do want to mention that right after the election, or what was it I saw? Uranus, which has been so active on her Jupiter return and all that kind of stuff, is going to conjunct her natal Jupiter again. It's happened once already. It's going to happen just after the election. This is bringing massive change and massive embodiment of values. And remember, this is close to Algol. She's got that kind of Algol quality that I see as fighting the patriarchy, petrifying the patriarchy. So then Uranus will conjunct Jupiter again, the last time, March 13th, 2025, and Uranus will start moving on from all that. Meanwhile, Jupiter is going to go back and forth in Gemini, but let me go. October, Jupiter will almost get to her ascendant on October the 9th and will go back into her 12th house again. But remember, she is coming out of those shadows. But Jupiter's also going to station direct February the 4th, 2025, right after the inauguration, opposing Pallas Athena, the wise justice warrior. And of course, that's an aspect that's happening 3 times as well. And then Jupiter will get to her ascendant, which is 24 Gemini. In March. Jupiter's going to pick up speed, move after that, and Jupiter going over the ascendant then, I think, and then over her North Node. And then, if you remember, her Gemini star point that I talked about last time, a Gemini Venus star point, because she was the first one in 64, is at 28 Gemini. Jupiter's going to go over all of this, over all her potential in her first house, which is her kind of stepping out, going, here I am. And in Gemini, I think she's going to hit the ground running. All right. So that's my thoughts on some of her transits. One thing I do want to mention, though, is also Ceres. Now, we have some similar placements. So she was born with Ceres in Capricorn. Over here, 5 degrees. Ceres in Capricorn is usually out of bounds. Ceres is one of those planets that goes way out of bounds. Now, Ceres is retrograde right now. And this being here, Pholus, the centaur, remember the centaurs have generally come in to heal overall. Both of these have been over her Ceres already. So she had a Ceres return. I could go back. Let me have a look. And remember, Ceres is the great mother goddess. To put it mildly, it's about needs met and unmet. And in Capricorn is about how the patriarchy has not met them. Okay. So she had her Ceres return very recently. And then Ceres went forward. Pholus has also been going over her. He's got, I think it's a 92-year orb. That one. I always get the orbits of Ceres and Nessus mixed up. But, you know, Pholus has spent a lot of time going over her Ceres. So the last time was in November of 2022. It kind of makes me feel like she has been really digging into how the systems and the structures just do not nurture and feed our needs over generally. And she has grown and learned a lot more. Again, keep your opinions to yourself. So I'm going to go forward a little bit and go back to where Ceres is now. So Ceres goes retrograde quite a lot, but I want to go to where Ceres goes direct on August the 26th, 2024, before the election. Ceres goes direct at 7 degrees of Capricorn, conjunct Pholus, the centaur. That's right on my Saturn. So I feel, and at that point, I do want to tell you that Ceres is going to be the most out of bounds, which means doing things differently, most kind of eccentric kind of energy in some way that, you know, could be possible. Most out of bounds. I just want to kind of just check on my sheet to tell you how far out of bounds she'll be. Yep, she'll be 30 degrees, 55 minutes out of bounds on the day that she stations direct, which is not long before the election, right? While she's doing all of this marketing, because the seventh house is also marketing, she's marketing herself, right? To others and selling herself, if you like, as this person who's going to heal. And I think she is just gonna just do it in a very different way. I'm already seeing shades of the Bernie Sanders kind of grassroots campaign that was very successful in 2016. Yes, he didn't become the nominee and things like that. That's fine. But she's not confirmed yet. No, I know, but she's going to be the nominee, and she's got everybody's endorsed her now. Whether they felt they had to or not, I don't know. So anyway, just as we get to August, and this is really happening on her series, she's going to talk about how things do not nourish and do not feed our needs, and how we need to look after the needs of, women, children, all those kind of things. There's so many things I could say, but as this happens, Mars is crossing into her first house too, which I think is amazing as well. I love that Mars crosses into her first house while all this is going on. Okay, because she's going to get stronger. She's going to talk more clearly. Her voice is going to get stronger. Gemini being the voice, it's already strong because she's got that Mars in Leo as well. But all this is speaking to each other. I kind of looked at that before. But also at the same time, we've got Chiron and Eris coming up to her moon. Stir the pot, shake things up, She, like all of us, has natal Eris in Aries, but it's at the cusp of her 11th house, which is kind of groups, organizations, and often politics as well. I know some other astrologers are kind of, she's going to have a bad year next year. Some astrologers don't see her winning. I will admit I have not looked at her yet with Donald Trump's chart, and I will. They definitely have some connections, but I'm not going to do it on this video because I just want to split them up. But, I actually just want to quickly look at one thing that I got a bit confused at when I was reading the list. I wanted to look where her progressed moon is. Yeah, I see it now, and I will show you. So a progressed moon moves through signs about every 2.5 years. Okay, so she now has a progressed moon in Cancer, which is bringing out that softer, more caring side of her. She, is talking, like saying, Joe, I love you. You're like, on a video, and I love Joe and all this kind of stuff. Her progressed moon is really important, and that's going to be in Cancer right through the election. It's going to move into her second house. It's also going to cross Hygeia, her natal Hygeia, which is the healer. The progressed moon is also going to catch up to her progressed Hygeia. I wouldn't normally look at those, but also her progressed sun. She has a progressed sun in Sagittarius that has just crossed into her seventh house. So it's heading up to the top of her chart, the most public place of her chart. And her Venus star point is at 28 Gemini. Her progressed sun is opposing a natal Venus star point, which is awesome too. This is kind of, I told you, it's her time. And I will stand by that. That doesn't mean that she won't get all this opposition, and she could win all the votes, and those cheating liars will manage to get things reversed. But for her personally, I think it's looking good. Much love.